Morning, everyone. My area of discussion will be for today will be something that is close to everyone in here inside this hall right now. It's basically where we are working, and many of you are also studying right now. So we are very privileged to be in this special space right now, which is a national cultural treasure, Intramuros. So for the past 2 years, almost 2 years that we've been here, the focus right now is to give this new narrative to what everyone has referred to as the walled city of Manila and the old city of Manila. So for purposes of the discussion for this morning, I will be following this outline. First, I would like to cover basically the fact that everyone here or every one of us has his own memory of what Intramuros should be. And I would like always to start the presentation with a quote from our national artist for literature, Nick Joaquin, who said that everyone basically has his own memory of what Intramuros should be. And that is what he referred to as the different layers of Intramuros. So basically, every Filipino perhaps has visited Intramuros once or twice in his lifetime. Basically, when he did the usual trip when he or she was a student, and for us right now here, we attended something as a conference, and for many of you here, you are all studying inside Intramuros. So, sorry, let me just go back to. So, Intramuros is basically that space, a national cultural treasure space that is waiting to be discovered always. And we all know the location is the prime city, it is in the prime space of Manila. And the value basically of the fact of Intramuros is that it used to be the political, administrative, religious capital of the country. Everything started inside the walled city. And to some extent, globalization actually started as well inside the walled city with the Manila-Acapulco trade. Now, what we wanted to do basically is to give this new narrative of the more than 400 years history of Intramuros, to give new narrative to the new generation. So last year, Intramuros was declared as a national cultural treasure. And as a national cultural treasure, our office is basically mandated to ensure its conservation. And we are an attached agency of the Department of Tourism, but alongside with that mandate of conservation, we are also required to do the tourism aspect or the tourism development of the space. So you're all familiar already what many of you here are students, so I'm sure you've been around the walled city and are very familiar with all of the spaces inside. If you look at it, there's our areas as well. The walled city spans basically 64 kilometers, and there are particular portions of Intramuros that are not already not covered already by the walls. So that aspect is something that we look forward to completing already as well. So in the walled city, you will see a number of cultural and heritage spaces. You will see monuments, old structures, basically, that are, in a way, structures that remind us as well of our heritage and our culture, where we started, the struggles of every Filipino for the past 400 years as well. So you have, for example, the Manila Cathedral, which has undergone 8 reconstructions already. You also have, of course, the San Agustin, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, the only Baroque church in Manila that is declared to be a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Then you also have, of course, the Puerta del Parian, which is open right now and it's very quite near, of course, Lyceum of the Philippines. The Puerta del Parian was actually the main gate that was used by Chinese merchants in going inside the walled city. Nung mga panahon ng mga Kastila, bawal po ang mga Pilipino sa loob ng Intramuros. They're all basically asked to leave at 6 in the evening and only you're either a member of the church or you're a member of the military elite to be inside the city. So you also have the Puerta de Santa Lucia, which is still you can see it as well right now, and of course Puerta Real, which dates back to the earlier period of the Spanish period as well. It's still existing right now, as well as a garden and a favorite venue for special events. The Ayuntamiento, which stands right now, is which was reconstructed a few years back, houses the Marble Hall, and this is basically the old site of the center of government in the Philippines. So it was the site of where the Spanish Governor General actually held his office there. And during the American period, this was also the site where we had a number of government offices. So the Senate, Congress, then you have a number, even the Supreme Court actually started inside the Ayuntamiento. And for now, it houses what we significantly referred to as the Marble Hall. So this is the Intendencia, which is very near the Pasig River, and you will see here basically this is the old customs building, and the reason why it's beside the Pasig River is for purposes of ensuring the proper customs rules are implemented during the Manila-Acapulco trade. So right now it's a ruin, but we intend basically, and we've been talking to the National Archives for the old Spanish records of the Philippines to move to the Intendencia already. So this is of course the Fort Santiago. That of course is the Fort Santiago Gate, which has been restored and right now properly being redeveloped as well to its original use. And in Magallanes Drive, you have the statue of Queen Isabel, which dates back to the 1800s, and we are now in discussions with the National Historical Commission of the Philippines for its proper restoration. Okay. Now, if you will note, as we said, the Intramuros was basically the political and religious administrative capital of the country. And for that particular period of time, everything actually started inside the walled city. Okay. Now, I won't anymore go into the historical redevelopment of the space, but it's basically the story of Intramuros tells the story of the struggle of the Filipinos, not only from the Spanish period, but even it predates back even to the time of Ra Sulaiman and Raha Matanda. Now, Intramuros was particularly destroyed. 94% of the walled city was destroyed during the Battle of Manila in 1945. So what you see right now is actually all reconstructions. The walled city was reconstructed from a period of the 1960s, heavily in the 1970s, until right now is undergoing the process of restoration and redevelopment. But what is unique basically when we trace the period of the redevelopment of the district is that there were particular periods that we had to go through the redevelopment. Now, our agency, the Intramuros Administration, or what we all refer to as the IA, started actually 39 years ago. We will be celebrating our 40th year this coming month. But the reason basically why Intramuros Administration was created was because of a flaw in the rules. You will see the Palacio del Gobernador, makikita niyo po yung Palacio del Gobernador, which is right in front of the Manila Cathedral. That is way beyond the height limitations or restrictions. So the reason why IA was created was basically to correct an error in ensuring that proper conservation rules are actually observed. Now, for the past 39 years, there were several phases of redevelopment. There were actually several redevelopment plans that were presented from the 1972 up to the 1990s. There were 3 redevelopment plans that were actually presented. And sadly, none of those redevelopment plans were properly implemented. So what we are doing right now is to shift, go back to the basic of not just coming up with a redevelopment plan, but what we refer to as a conservation management plan. Because what we see basically as a challenge when we came in is that There is no common methodology in terms of observing conservation measures among national and local cultural agencies. There is really no common standards among the national agencies in terms of how conservation management should be done. So in an urban heritage district like Intramuros, this was really a challenge that we had to hurdle with. And of course, you have the problem of exposure or resiliency to disasters. We all know that Intramuros is basically within what we refer to as a earthquake challenge space. So what we intend to do is to introduce measures that will ensure the resiliency of the district so that if anything happens, you will still be able to see the structures that reflects the struggle of every Filipino. And of course, the other major problem that we are now dealing with is a matter of urbanization. So these are all the main challenges that we are trying to handle right now. So what we did basically is to adopt a common framework, and this is what we refer to as the UNESCO framework for urban heritage redevelopment. We adopted the urban heritage landscape approach. We identified first basically what are the doables from the period of 2 years and what are the implementables and doables for the period of until 2022. And what we basically have identified is to improve access. We do not want to isolate Intramuros anymore from the other areas of Manila, but we want to introduce it already in the new light as well. So basically for the past 2 years, what we've been doing is the major redevelopment of the district in terms of infrastructure. And we've done the proper land use mapping as well to ensure that everything is done properly in terms of redevelopment. Now, there's a traffic and mobility plan that was adopted 4 years ago. Unfortunately, that was not properly implemented. What we are doing right now is to accelerate that implementation of the traffic mobility plan. And the main challenge is basically how do we now ensure continuity in the life inside the walled district to ensure that everyone actually understands the privilege of being able to stay inside the district. And what we've been doing right now is basically to adopt a long-term approach of implementing the conservation management plan. The conservation management plan will actually precede any redevelopment or effort of the district. What we want to do is to ensure that there is the proper urban and identity design guidelines already in place after we've done the conservation management plan of Intramuros. The other approach is the inclusive development directions. And these are projects that are meant to ensure the inclusivity of the space. For our 40th year, what we wanted to highlight already are the people inside the district, the people who are actually part of the heritage and part of the effort to ensure the conservation of the district. Okay. So in terms of direction, the vision that we have adopted for 2022 is basically an inclusive, dynamic, and resilient Intramuros. There's a particular space in the Pasig River that 44 chambers that we will now be converting in what we refer to as the MICE Transit Creative Hub. That's 44 chambers that will house creativity and design excellence services. And this will be an iconic space for creative design services inside the walled city. Let me show you the last video basically that we basically sets the direction already for the next 3 years, remaining 3 years of the administration. And the focus right now is on the people who are actually part of the value of Intramuros. And last.
If there's something about Manila that hasn't changed ever since, it's the lovely sunrise and sunset. as if reminding us that in all the chaos, there's still beauty to find in this place we all call home. And moving around it every day, doing the things that we have to do, we completely forget the invaluable history that it holds and the endless possibilities it can achieve. As Intramuros administration celebrates its 40th year, we also celebrate its people. As we work together, inspire each other, and teach one another of the many ways why this city is a place we will always love to call home. Standing as one, so that we never forget the past that taught us how to survive, so we can move forward with a strong heart to build a future that we can all be proud of. We are Intramuros.
Now, what to expect basically in the coming years is an integration of Intramuros with the National Museum and also an integration with the National Park. We've started already this by the rehabilitation of the Plaza Gumburza Monument. What we hope to do is to ensure that there is access already between the Intramuros and the National Museum. And after that, we will now move forward to the integration and convergence with the National Park. So that's basically summarizes, and in terms of balancing the challenge of culture and heritage, it's basically ensuring inclusivity of the space as well. Thank you and good morning.